Yesterday, we had two important earnings come out. The first one was Meta Platforms, and the second one was Microsoft. And unfortunately, both stocks are down after earnings and really causing the overall tech market to be down. We can see our favorite semiconductor company, Nvidia, is also down roughly 4% as I am recording today's episode. On today's episode, what I really want to do is take a closer look at what Meta Platforms said for just kind of the AI space, AI infrastructure, and kind of correlate that with Nvidia stock. There are a lot of wonders. Hey, if Meta and Microsoft provided negative news that Nvidia stock investors should be worried about, too long, don't read. I want to say the answer is no. I think right now earnings are okay in forms of AI infrastructure, in forms of AI innovation, and we're going to see Meta did announce some pretty cool updates. On later's episode that I might drop off either today or tomorrow, I will take a closer look at Microsoft. But just maybe some investors might be wondering, hey, Jose, what are your thoughts right now? Nothing in the short term that is going to worry me right now. I have no intentions of doing anything with any of my shares for big tech players like Nvidia, like Microsoft, like Meta, which I all own in my portfolio. So enough of that. Let's get started with today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first thing I want to start off is Nvidia finally updated and gave the actual schedule for their earnings, and earnings are expected to be on November 20th after the market closes, and this is for the quarter that ends on October 27, which will be their third fiscal quarter of year 2025. So remember, they are about a year ahead. Now, a second thing I do want to mention is I am away for vacation right now. My little one is taking a nap, so I'm taking this opportunity to record, and whenever he's sleeping, I will be kind of gathering information. But for the next few days, I won't be releasing my typical videos, but if I have any major concerns, I would either post it on a post here on YouTube or on Twitter. At the end of the day, I don't think there's going to be anything crazy that I think investors should really be freaked out about. But if there's that, the real way for you to find out any information of my thoughts, I will post it there. But as a long-term investor, even earnings are more things that I would take time to digest, to really think about it before making any decision, and it wouldn't come out right out of the blue. So if you're really looking to see what one should do with the earnings, this is not the channel to be in. I just share my overall thoughts. But because I am in vacation, those thoughts might take a little bit longer to progress than normal. But I hope you guys do enjoy the rest of this video. So we can see Nvidia right now is down roughly 4.6%. We do see that Microsoft is down roughly 5.6%. And another big player that reported earnings yesterday was Meta Platforms. And Meta Platforms is also down roughly 4.5%. I mean, at the end of the day, all these stocks are still, Meta Platforms, right, is still pretty much only down 1.5% in the past 5 days. In the past month, it's also pretty much flat. In the past 6 months, the stock is up over 31%. So short term, so much volatility can happen. But when you look at it in the long term of things, it doesn't really look like anything at all. Microsoft in the past 5 days is down roughly 4.2%. In the past month, the stock is down 5%. But in the past 6 months, the stock is up roughly 5%. Microsoft year to date is only up 10%. So maybe in the future video, this might seem pretty interesting as some of the other AI companies are up a nice amount. And Microsoft, what I believe, is probably one of the best AI companies in forms of big tech. So something, maybe an idea for a future video. So we're going to focus more on Meta Platforms. And like I mentioned, Meta is down roughly 4.5%. And Meta, while it's not a huge cloud service provider, right? They don't offer cloud computing platforms to other external customers. They are a big customer of Nvidia, and they do focus a lot in the AI market. So they're very important kind of to understand where the AI landscape is and how the AI space is going. So the first thing that really caught my attention during the earnings call was Mark Zuckerberg talked about Llama 4. He mentions that they're training the Llama 4 models on a cluster that is bigger than 100,000 H100s, or bigger than anything that they've seen reported for what others are doing. And he expects that smaller Llama 4 models will be ready first, and they'll be ready sometime early next year. So that already right off the bat is very important in my opinion. It just showcases the huge amounts of training happening everywhere. And for them to say it's anything bigger that they've seen reported so far, the biggest one that we know so far is XAI. And they just recently talked about a 200,000 GPU cluster being built in the future. So I'm curious to think if Mark Zuckerberg is even saying that, hey, look, ours is bigger than even that, which would be pretty impressive. The other thing is we did recently see AMD report earnings, and AMD reported that their AI accelerators are pretty much just in the inference market. So for anyone doing any forms of training, we already know who the main player is and who the only player is in this landscape right now, and that's Nvidia. So they have a bigger cluster than 100,000 GPUs. So that, in my opinion, just showcases the strength that Nvidia has. They also talk a little bit more about AI investment in forms of AI infrastructure. And obviously, this is going to be the main takeaway for NVIDIA investors. And they mention AI investments continue to require serious infrastructure, and they expect to continue investing significantly there too. They haven't decided their final budget yet, but those are some of the direction trends that they're seeing moving forward. So right off the bat, we can see from Meta platforms, we got kind of that green light that they're going to continue to invest heavily in AI infrastructure. So at the end of the day, these two good things, in my opinion, are coming out for NVIDIA stocks. So as an NVIDIA investor, I'm already pretty excited about the upcoming earnings. And in my opinion, Meta Platforms is doing really, really good with the AI market as well. And if you watched my Google video that I dropped, I think 2 days ago, because I don't think I dropped the video yesterday, but I did a Google video on their earnings. One thing that Google mentioned during their earnings call was that about a quarter of the new code that's being written is now being written by AI. So what I was actually pretty hopeful to see is to see if there's any new type of AI discussion being talked about by these big tech players and how they're individually using AI one way or another. And obviously, when it comes with Meta platforms, we know that AI is pretty strong in forms of helping you recommend systems so people have better watch times and helping you kind of recommend better advertisement solutions as well. So it does help with their core products a lot. But my opinion is I completely forgot that those models can become even better and better. And Meta Platforms talks about it. They mentioned, however, inspired by the scaling laws they are observing with their large language models last year, they're developing new ranking model architectures capable of learning more effectively from significantly larger data sets. To start, they have been deploying these new architectures to their Facebook ranking, video ranking models, which has enabled them to deliver more relevant recommendations and unlock meaningful gains in watch time, which obviously means they can give you more ads. Now they're exploring where these new models can unlock similar improvements to recommendations on other services. So here is another prime example of AI evolving and becoming a useful aspect in the company's core technology. And we know that ranking systems has been a thing for a while, but thanks to AI, those ranking systems are getting better and better and becoming more efficient and helping drive even more potential revenue for Meta platforms. Now we kind of are going to take a closer look at CapEx Outlook. So they anticipate for the full year of 2024, capital expenditure will be in the range of 38 billion to 40 billion, updated from their prior range of 37 to 40. So they didn't increase the top end, but they did increase the lower end. And in my opinion, the reason a lot of these players can't increase the top end is at the end of the day, there's not enough supply, right? There's not enough AI chips out there in the market. So even if they wanted to spend more, and excuse me if that made a noise, even if they wanted to spend more, they physically can't. That's why Google, in their last earnings, mentioned that CapEx is going to be the same for this upcoming quarter. So it's not that this is bearish for NVIDIA. It's important to remember how the supply chain market is for the AI space. So if NVIDIA and TSMC can't really produce more chips, then at the end of the day, there's no type of money that these big tech players can spend. But they continue to expect significant capital expenditure growth in 2025. And in my opinion, if Meta is investing heavily, there's no way that Google is going to be left behind. There's no way that Microsoft and all these other players are going to say, hey, look, Meta's investing too much money. Let them do their thing. We're not going to follow suit. I think everybody who's in the AI space is going to want to continue to be competitive. So if Meta believes they're going to see significant growth in capital expenditure, I'm going to guess we're going to see similar results around the mark next year. So again, very, very bullish for the company. And this makes sense as NVIDIA and TSMC have mentioned that throughout the quarters, throughout the years, they should be able to see an improvement of manufacturing capabilities and capacities. So if next year they have more capacity, it makes more sense that NVIDIA will be able to sell more chips. Therefore, the capex of all these companies should also grow in relations to that. Because all these big tech companies already know the type of production and numbers that NVIDIA can deliver next year. So at the end of the day, again, very, very bullish in my opinion for NVIDIA. Now, there was a question kind of saying, hey, look, what can AI do and how can it be used in the solutions that Meta Platform has? Mark Zuckerberg mentions that, hey, look, the main thing about the AI space, and I think this is very important, right? Because it kind of gives us a better understanding of how we should view AI solutions. So Mark mentions that AI is something that can be used in a wide variety of products. So there are areas that are part of their core products, like I mentioned earlier, like those recommendation systems, which are improving thanks to AI and increase better watch time and increasing better ad solutions as well. Now there's also new types of products and new types of service. Like for example, Meta AI was never a thing before. Ray-Ban glasses wasn't a thing before. So there's a lot of different ways that AI can be used and either improve the current core products or increase and bring new solutions for that company. So anyone that's really a first player, a kind of an innovator in the space is going to have the ability to move at a rapid pace. Next, there was a question more in depth on CapEx, right? Why is CapEx kind of moving in certain directions? And the CFO mentions that the expected step up in quarter four CapEx from quarter three is part of an increase in server spending. In my opinion, that means that Meta Platforms is probably going to be getting a nice amount of Grace Blackwell servers in quarter four, which we know quarter four is when they're going to start shipping out to start to really ship out in a nice amount of volume for NVIDIA. So they're expecting CapEx to grow thanks to server spend. Again, it correlates to NVIDIA's Blackwell chip as well, Blackwell servers, and they're saying it's less extent on data center CapEx. So it seems like Meta Platforms has a lot of data center real estate right now, and now they're trying to fill it up with servers. So it's pretty important to understand how CapEx is. CapEx is not just directly chips, it's not just directly real estate, it's a mixture of both. So just because maybe CapEx might be moving in one direction, the actual in-depth of how it's going, is it going more on AI chips, is it going more on real estate, is very important to understand as well. Because there might be a quarter where, hey, look, CapEx might go down in forms of sequential numbers, but the amount of dollar values going to things like AI chips might increase. Two things can be true at the same time. CapEx can go down, but the amount of dollar sign going to AI chips could increase because the company might just be reducing the CapEx going on real estate. So if you are an NVIDIA investor, just looking at CapEx number is not a smart move because it doesn't paint the full picture. The other thing to understand is CapEx is very lumpy in forms of sequential numbers, so don't get caught up with looking at sequential numbers because a lot of things can impact here. Deliveries of the time, so maybe there might have been some delays with the freight or the shipping company. There might have been some delays with the cash going out or something like that. So here, for example, Meta Platform mentions that some of the servers that they got delivered landed very late in quarter three. But Meta Platforms doesn't really send the money out until a few weeks after that, and it's going to fall into quarter four. So while CapEx sequentially might look a little bit weak, it's better to look at the trailing 12-month picture because that paints a better picture and removes a lot of the lumpiness. The final thing I want to mention is Mark Zuckerberg kind of finished off one of the last questions, or one of the last questions, saying that part of the formula with building kind of the AI market is investing a lot in infrastructure. And maybe this is something that investors don't want to hear, right? They don't want to see a company spending so many billions and billions of dollars on AI chips, on AI infrastructure. But in the near term, that is going to be growing. They're going to be spending a lot more money because they think the opportunities here are very, very big. So again, I believe this is going to be the same tone. All big tech is going to tell us that, hey, look, The AI market is still very strongly investing. They're going to have high capex for the next few quarters because the opportunity of AI is real. So at the end of the day, I mean, I can't sound like a broken record, but maybe I am. This is very bullish for Nvidia. So, I mean, I've talked about it in the past. While Nvidia is my number one position, I've talked that levels at those 140s are not levels I personally would buy very heavy share. It would be very, very small dollar cost averaging. Here at 132s, I think it would still be around that same small dollar cost averaging. I think patient investors are going to be the best investors, and not you never know what can happen in the market, volatility, things like election. But I think this would be for me where I would do a nice dollar cost averaging would be in the high 100 single digits. So like 108, 109, 110, or the low 1 teens. So like 111, 112, 113. Around that price range is where I would be very excited to add more into Nvidia. Remember, this is my number one position. So at the moment, I don't mind being patient. And if we don't get those prices, that's fine with me, right? Because it's already my number one position. And why I have the ability to be patient, because I've been following NVIDIA for such a long time. I can continue to be patient. And that's why for me, it's more of a small dollar cost average. I'm not saying we would ever get to those prices, but those are the prices I would really think about adding more. So take care, have a good day, and see you next time.